this is the quadratic formula. It solves any quadratic. Quadratics have x squared, no higher exponents. The only problem is you have to use this formula, you need to know your a, b, c's. Basically your quadratic has to be in this particular form. And it has to be equal to 0. A is a number next to the x squared, b is a number next to the x, c is a number by itself. So, is this in standard form? Yes. So we just simply, really quick, my a is 1 because I have 1x squared. My b looks like a negative 2 in front of the x. And my c looks like a negative 3. So, to solve this, we use the formula x equals negative b. So what's b? Looks like a negative 2 plus or minus the square root of, looks like b squared minus 4ac. Let's see, what goes right in there? Well, it looks like a b squared. B is negative 2. So negative 2 goes in for b. And it says 4ac. So this is a, so a is 1. And c is negative 3. Divided by 2 times, and it says a right here, and a looks like 1. So that part usually pretty simple. You just got to memorize the formula, which can be hard. And then you got to look for your ABCs and plug them in where they're supposed to be. The math of simplifying this gets people sometimes. The opposite of negative 2 is positive 2. Negative 2 squared is not negative 4. It's positive 4. And then negative 4 times 1 times negative 3. Think of that as a negative 4. So negative 4 times 1 is negative 4. Negative 4 times negative 3 is positive 12. And the bottom here is 2. Alright, simplify what's in the square root. It looks like we're going to have 2 plus or minus the square root of 16. Now, a lot of times we're done right here. But let's see if we can simplify the square root. Can we? Yes, you should notice that this is 2 plus or minus, oh, the square root of 16 is 4. Can we actually keep going with this? Yeah. What you got to realize is your answer is 2 plus 4 divided by 2, and the other one is 2 minus 4 divided by 2. There's actually 2 answers, which we can actually keep going and find those answers. This one, well, 2 plus 4 is 6. 6 divided by 2 is 3. Good. And this one, 2 minus 4 is negative 2. Divided by 2 is negative 1. Now, would that have been easier just to factor this one and solve it? Yes. There'll be times where you need to use quadratic formula. There'll be times where you get to choose. This one actually would have been easier to factor to solve it. Okay. Plug everything in. When you get to the square root, simplify it if you can. In this particular one, you could simplify it. You got 2 answers. Number 2 here. Is it in standard form? No. So what we need to do is we first need to minus this x over and add this 5 over just somewhere over here. When we do that, we now have 2x squared, and then a negative 3 and a negative 1 is negative 4x, and this 5 just adds on the end. Okay. From there, we need to find my ABCs. Got to know your ABCs. A is, well, how many x squareds? 2. B is, well, negative 4 x's. And the 5 by itself is the c value. A lot of times when I do this, I write the whole thing with a whole bunch of blanks. And then I go and fill it afterwards. Everybody has their preference. Everywhere there's a letter, I wrote the equation. Everywhere there's a letter, I just put a blank using parentheses. right here. I took the whole formula, just wrote it with a whole bunch of blanks. And then I take these three numbers and plug them in the right spots. So the first one's a b. b is negative 4. The next one is another b, so that negative 4 goes here too. The next one is an a is 2. And then we have a c, which in this situation is 5. And in the bottom we have an a, which was 2. You don't have to do it that way. You can write it one by one, whatever you want. I just tend to, a lot of times, write it with a whole bunch of blanks and then fill in the letters. It's your call. Let's simplify. Negative 4 is positive 4. Negative 4 squared is 16. Negative 4 times 2 is negative 8. Negative 8 times 5 is negative 40. And 2 times 2 is 4. So we have x equals 4 plus or minus 16 minus 40. Is that 34 or 24? 34. And is it negative 24? Now, real quick, is 24 break down to a really nice number? No. But what does negative mean here? Is it imaginary? That imaginaries we actually couldn't solve, we'd be stuck and no solution. But we can with imaginaries. But can't 24, let's break down this negative 24 here. First of all, isn't that square root negative 1 times square root 24? And then what square number goes into 24? Isn't it 4 times 6? Isn't that 4 times 6? So wouldn't this right here give you I? And this give you 2? So my answer looks like it's going to be, well, what comes out? A 2i. Sorry, 4. Plus or minus, what comes out of the square root? Looks like a 2i. And the square root 6 is left behind. And then you divide by 4. Now most people think they're done there. Got everything out of the square root. We cannot get this on a calculator because it's imaginary. The problem is 4, 2, and 4. Do those all have something in common? Can I reduce that? Because basically, could I divide this 4 by 4? This 2 by 4. Can you think of reducing all these numbers in front? You actually could reduce this to, what goes into 2, 4, and 2? 2. You actually could reduce this to 2 plus or minus I square root 6 divided by 2. And some people even reduce it to this. This is the way I usually do it too. That's all I get it to. And we're good. But sometimes they reduce it to 1, because 2 over 2, isn't that 1? Plus I square root 6 over 2. Some people would switch it to this as well. I tend to keep it here. That's good enough for me. But sometimes on multiple choice tests, they'll go one more step.